Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Relative Pitch.
We're already off to a bad start.
You have
Y'all,
one
I
job.
can't do it no more.
There was
We are
one
this
job.
close. We are this close to Thanksgiving, and my brain is this close for being complete. We have a wonderful episode in today, and we have a wonderful guest, Gala Flagello.
Oh, got it. Hey.
Thank you. Couldn't pronounce our podcast name, but I got our guest name. So, and she is tuning in to us from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I'm gonna pass it right on to her and let her tell us all about herself before we start poking and prodding with questions.
I love it. Thank you so much, Michael. And hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a Relative Pitch fan. So this is the best dream come true. Honestly, I need to put this as the first line in the bio right now.
Yeah.
Love it. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm a composer, educator, and the festival director and co-founder of Connecticut Summerfest, which is a contemporary music festival in our 10th anniversary season. So I am super excited to talk to you about any and all of those hats that I wear.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and
10 years
Yes, yeah.
ago. I don't
first
even.
of all, Callie, you're like 18. So how?
That's rude.
No, because like she's young. Like we're all young. We're living our best life. Like first of all, 10 years ago, for me, I'm still sitting here, sitting at the lunch table, trying to get the lunch tea, and you're starting a whole like music festival. Like what in the world?
Well, I do have to say, yes, my co-founder Erin and I did start it when we were quite young. I was a junior in undergrad, and he quickly became one of my best friends. He was a first-year master's student. We just were sitting together in a bunch of classes. We would sit together in orchestration class together, and then we would head out into the music library together to like apply to summer music festivals, as you do. And I have to be honest with you, Connecticut Summerfest started out as kind of a complaint and a joke. We were looking at each other and we were like, oh, this one, you don't really get a recording. This one feels like just a comp program tacked onto a performance program. This one is so expensive. This one, you have to travel so far. Why don't we just start our own festival? And then we did a double take and we looked at each other again. We're like, yeah, we're just gonna start our own festival. As to incredibly audacious youths do. So yes, we started the festival when I was 21 and Erin was 24, 25, I think. And we sort of fought our way through a lot of red tape. It takes place at the Hart School still in Connecticut, where we were both doing degrees. And it's grown and changed every single year. Erin and I say we try something new every year. Most recent favorite changes, I think, have been we are, I think, in our 5th year of a pay what you can application fee. We also implemented a zero tuition initiative, so long-term sustainable plan over time to decrease composer tuition every single year, which we are doing. And I don't think there are any other festivals who are doing that. So we're just really, really proud of what we're doing. We love being a platform for other composers and ensembles that are commissioning and touring really cool new music, getting to be a free, open concert series for the public, both in the greater Hartford area and anywhere online, for classical music. It's well, I should say contemporary classical music. It's such a joy. It's truly my and Erin's baby, and we're just so excited to have made it here.
Gosh. It's the accessibility thoughts for me because it's on every angle, like the pay what you can angle for people who want to participate, but also having these concerts be free and open to the public is really amazing. Like, is this something that, like, as you guys have been evolving, was just something that was super significant to you? Because, I mean, you applying for summer festivals, we've all been there, right? Where it's like $300 for the application and then like 15,000 for the summer. Like that's insane. But like actually some of them are kind of like that. But like you literally can't. Like if you're a student who your family can't afford those festivals, maybe let's say you get a $2,000 scholarship, that's over a 7,000 tuition thing. That's still $5,000 you have to cover yourself. And like you still have other things to do in the summer as well. And usually these things are maybe like 1 week, 2 weeks, or they're maybe like a month possibly, but that's such a huge barrier. So I'm like just really happy to hear that you're thinking about that. And I'm really hoping that maybe other festivals will start thinking about the barriers of entry that they have, for students who absolutely could be there merit wise, talent wise. They could be there, but they just don't have the funding to be able to do that. Like, was that something that you guys really is more of a present thing that you're just being more conscious of, or was that something that was always a factor for you?
I think always a factor, but has surely increased year over year in terms of the different sort of levers we're trying to pull to continually solve a problem that is systemic. And I think part of it started because we, as a junior and first year master's student, we were looking around, we were saying, here are the things that we've experienced that we don't like, here are the things we experience that we do like. We're going to take what we think is the best of everything and do that. But what you start to realize is when your format is based on an existing format, you are inherently carrying over some systemic issues because that's the format that exists.
Yeah.
So I think, things like decreasing tuition every year, to be completely honest with you, every other festival you're going to see, and even us for the first, I think, 3-ish years, tuition was increasing. Yeah, exactly. Michael's hand going up and to the right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And it is, I would say, a pattern that a particular structure follows. They say, okay, inflation is real, our prices are going up. And it is easy to solve a problem that way.
Yes.
But the larger context, Lauren, that you're pointing to is what has always been at the forefront for Erin and I, which is we want to see and hear really cool contemporary music. And what that means is all the voices in the conversation. We are a stylistically agnostic festival, from our anonymous application process all the way to the different kinds of ensembles that we invite. We have 3 ensembles in residence every year. You can tell from our comp faculty, we want the students to experience all different kinds of genres, all different kinds of backgrounds and approaches. And when you have that as an artistic mission, I think that is immediately, or at least it should immediately compute an accessibility mission, because you are trying to get those voices in the room and you literally can't if those voices can't afford to be in the room. So then you go back to your budget and you have to say, okay, well, magic math isn't going to work. So what is the real math? And I will say, Erin and I started Connecticut Summerfest with the what we called the dream budget and the real budget. And that first year we sure did land on the real budget. But every year I think it is coming into something as theoretically black and white as budgeting, with the idea of what could we do, not considering the fact that we would have to fundraise, I don't know, 10K more than we were originally predicting. Like, if that weren't an issue, what would this look like? And I think that's the ethos that we start with every season. And I don't know, even saying start with every season is funny, because at this point, like, you all probably know from this podcast and your many, many ventures, like, the phases sort of blur together. We're having a really exciting conversation about 2026, but we meet an ensemble that we're like, ooh, they would be great for 2028. So I think and also the fact that I am doing this with one of my best friends, I tell folks all the time, my mission in life is to work with and hire my friends, because I want to always be working with good people. I want to always be working with folks who I'm aligned with, both artistically and in life. Yeah. And I don't know, you all are a testament to that. The fact that you started this podcast, just 3 friends wanting to put something really cool out into the space.
First of all, the reason I've been so silent and listening and jaw dropping, I've been checking out this whole festival and everything. This is awesome. Like this, I am jealous that I cannot perform at this festival.
Maybe some year we will have you.
This is literally like a dream. Like, you get to like work with the composers, 9 new compositions every year into the repertoire. Composers get to hear the ensemble concerts. Like, they get to hear what other works is being performed. Also, 4 lessons, like with these 4 amazing people.
And 1 hour private lessons, because that was something that Aaron and I were trying to solve. We were having all of these quite frankly, ineffective and terrible group lessons at festivals where you're paying, like Lauren said, $5,000. And you're like, what am I learning? Like, is this teacher invested? And oftentimes, unfortunately, the answer is no. And so when we choose and have conversations around composition faculty and ensembles, the number one thing we're looking for is that they are as invested in the mission as we are. We, as composers, had experiences with ensembles where, it's either a random pickup band of students who's very excited about their Mozart and not excited about the Gala Flagello, or it's I had been to a festival the year after we founded ours, where this sort of ensemble that was put together of, I will say, many very talented, individually talented musicians, was premiering 40 new pieces on 3 concerts in less than a month. And can you imagine the degree of detail that they were able to go into? Probably not a lot. So every year we want relationship to be at the core of that interaction. Every composer has 3, sometimes even more rehearsals in the span of less than 6 days with this ensemble. And every ensemble member typically is willing to communicate with that composer, usually via email, Zoom, throughout the couple of months that they have to write the piece. So usually they get in the room and like, they've already heard parts of the piece. So we wanted to basically build a composer's paradise that then the general public could see, this is how awesome contemporary music can be.
Well, and not only that, after the fact, you have these ensembles like repping these composers. They're like, oh my God, if you're looking for someone to commission, this is the person. This was our experience working with them. And that's how we get our living composers, the one, have to pay rent, have to put food in their bellies. Like the money they deserve and the recognition they deserve. And this is just, I want to commend you. This is just awesome. Like, I am addicted to this, and I've already sent it to 4 of my composition friends.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much.
Of course.
We have to spread the word, because these are the type of events that we wish that we had when we were going through. Because like you said, there's so many barriers that they put against us and our voices. And the fact that, both you and your co-founder were like, excuse me, we need to be in the room, and people like us need to be in the room, and voices need to be heard. So we're going to create our own space for this. That is so beautiful. And we commend you for doing that, because it is not easy starting something on the first try. Like, it's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart either. So, you opening those doors for the new composers to come out, and specifically talking about new music, because like you said, so many of these festivals are always on the old music, the Mozarts, the Brahms, the serenades from Beethoven and all those things. And it's like, okay, that's been done a million times. But we have Gala Flagello right here that is just, written some beautiful things. We can actually call her and say, hey, what were you thinking about this? Having that connection between composers and ensemble members, as well as conductors. As a conductor, I did your piece, Bravado, and I was like, girl, let's just call her. Like, let's just see, like, what were you thinking about this? It's so easy to do now. I'm sure back in the 50s and 60s, there was a whole, you gotta write a whole little thing on a typewriter and send it through the mail, UPS. Child, old school.
60s?
UPS.
But it was just a simple Facebook Messenger of like, hey, Gala, I'm doing your piece. What were your thoughts? Can we have a FaceTime? And we ended up doing that. Now that's what we should be doing, having those conversations with composers and creating those connections, because you never know what could come out of that. And by the way, here's a plug. If y'all aren't doing Gala's music, y'all need to get into it. That the bravado, I'm just gonna have to speak on it right now because this is my time. That piece is amazing. Okay. It is fun to listen to. The way she wrote it is just so intricate, unique. The sound is amazing. And as a conductor, honey, gestures. I was just, I had fun doing it. Okay. So that's my little plug for Gala's music. OMG. Keep programming today.
Oh, thank you, Anthony. And I have to say, you are honestly a model of this relationship that we're building that we're talking about. Because when you messaged me, that was like the most joyful thing that I could have received. I will, and shout out to the listeners too. Any musician who's performing my music, any conductor, any school, any initiative. I want to hear from them because I would love to take, whether it's 5 minutes or an hour just
Mm,
answering your questions, being able to show especially younger students or earlier stage musicians that like a living composer is here and she can look like me. That
yeah.
is really, really important to me because I don't know, I think in some way we all want to be the person maybe we didn't have, or be a point of access that is open and inviting and welcoming. And I think, Anthony, to your point, like I thank you so much for your kind words. I write music that I want to listen to. I write music that I enjoy. And so when I find somebody else who enjoys my music and we get to have a conversation about that, that
Mhm.
is the most fulfilling thing in the world as a composer. So, please never stop messaging me whenever you perform something of mine.
I mean, it's just that unique connection. And that's what we should have, now in music is the connection. And I guess back in the day, I mean, I'm assuming people were scared to speak to composers because they're like, oh, well, maybe it's not ready or this or that. But, it's one of those things that there's another person, a human being on the other line that created this. And our job as a conductor or our job as an instrumentalist is to have your voice come through the piece as we perform it. And the best way to do that is to just ask. You will
Mhm.
never know if something is right or wrong until you ask. And we have the privilege to do that.
And
Right.
something I want to talk about this because this ties in very well to this conversation on composer and artist relation. We were just talking before we hit, record that Gala is doing a commissioning class, right? With where like currently, and I would love to talk about that.
Mhm.
And I would also love to talk about how commissioning is advocacy if you're doing it very intentionally. This is something like I'm plugging a little bit of what I'm doing right now for my DMA project is working and highlighting Dorothy Antoinette Handy, who is a composer of one flute piece that we have. Like, yay, flute, go. And she was a flutist herself, amazing, fabulous. But what you see is at the end of her life, all she's doing is commissioning works by Black composers. And that is what she actually really built her legacy on, besides all the 50 other things she does, is commissioning as advocacy. And like, it really, and this is something that I believe me and Anthony have talked a lot about what we love about what Michael's doing with his own like performance work is that Michael commissions so often I mean, I guess you have to commission living composers, right? But like, but like intentionally, who is he is reaching out to, who he's connecting with, who he's giving this like these projects and work to, who he's highlighting and platforming is advocacy in itself. So can we like kind of break that down and talk about how for you as a composer, how commissioning really works for you?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Lauren. And also, huge shout out back to you because what an amazing project that is. I also want to, oh my gosh, you're going to have to shout out the title, but I also have the book collection that you put together, that my friend Nicholas Felder is in. So I just want to shout out your book too.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
gosh, thank you. Thank you.
What is
And
it? What is it called? What is it
it's
called?
called From Our Eyes and Ears, and Anthony is also a contributor in it as well. And it's just that collection is just so. Anytime I think about it, I'm just so grateful. And it also reminds me of like when you just have a project idea in mind, go for it. This is kind of what we were talking about again with like the Connecticut like Summerfest. If there's something that you just see that you want, just do it. You never know what could possibly come out of it or the level of impact it can have on like an individual and like community basis. So thank you for shouting that out. Shout out to Nick Felder. Yes, love, love, love.
Yeah. Yes.
Amazing. Yes, and Anthony, I'm so excited to know that you're in this collection also. As you can tell, I recently got it. So it's like on the to read. I'm super excited. Hopefully we'll fit it in 2024 for the books of the year.
Yes. Also, just small thing, how small the world is. Nicholas Felder went to undergrad with us.
Yeah.
So the fact that he is, is a Michigan connect with you and like this, like we have said this so many times on the podcast. The music world and just world in general is way smaller than you think it is. You never know how that first, second, or third connection, you never know who will be there and who will be amongst those mutuals. So, connect with everybody and anybody because the world is your oyster.
Yes, and I will say the world gets even smaller because Nicholas is on our staff for Connecticut Summerfest. So,
oh my gosh.
And I remember premiering one of his works at KSU. It just like hit me. It's called A Self-Discovery.
And I programmed him on my master's recital when I was at UNM. I had commissioned him to write Journey Home, the piece that is like based off of traditional like Black spirituals and folk songs. And literally it closed my master's recital. And like, shout out Nick. Like, I'm sorry, love to Nick.
Let's do it.
Since we're on it, when we were in undergrad, I conducted one of his pieces for a recording project. So it's just like, these are lifelong connections. These are true lifelong connections. And OMG. But Gala, can you talk about, how important those commissioning works is? And can you give us a little bit of, how you structure that class for it to be a full semester?
Of course. Yeah, I'm so excited. I also need to shout out, I get to co-teach this class with one of my other best friends. I got to co-design and co-teach this class with Mike Avitabile, who is the flutist and executive director of Hub New Music. The world still small, has been a many-time Connecticut Summerfest ensemble in residence, is actually performing my concerto that I wrote for them, I think later this week in Pennsylvania. So yeah, big happy family. But Mike and I are so excited to teach the classes called Commissioning and Collaboration Basics for both undergrads and grads at the University of Michigan, because it is coming from the perspective of both a composer and a performer, from somebody who is a presenter and someone who is constantly talking to presenters of, for example, chamber music series and societies to tour. So I love that the two of us get to bring all of those different perspectives to our students. And like Lauren said, show them that commissioning is not only possible, but necessary, I would say. There is nothing greater than collaborating with somebody because I think it helps number one, you're not alone. You have somebody who has creative impetus in maybe the same way that you do. And number two, it just makes all of our circles bigger. I think collaboration allows us to lead an expansive life. And like we're talking about, you just never know whose circles are going to overlap with your circles. And I think if we are living a rich life, that means our world just gets smaller as it gets bigger, if that makes sense. So our class is structured around, as you might imagine, first starting with what is collaboration? How do we do it not only effectively, but respectfully? How do we make sure we're communicating clearly? How do we even begin to find the kind of folks that we might want to work with? So we talk a lot about connecting with people in a physical space and also a digital space, what that can look like, what that maybe should or shouldn't look like, so that we make sure that we're always having an open line of communication, whether that's about the project or about where, our careers and our aspirations are going in the long term. And then we move on to the real nitty gritty, things like paying all artists in the conversation fairly. That moves into a conversation about fundraising and funding, all those different sources, and not just where to find them, but how to look for them. I think, like you're saying, Anthony, starting anything can be really scary. And so we want to empower our students to jump off the ledge safely. And it starts with like a Google search most of the time, or just, a nice coffee conversation with someone. So we talk about that. We talk about contracting. We do our best to make contracts not scary. We, talk to our students about how they can just start practicing writing contracts with their friends. Think of it as a list of bullet points that you want to agree to. And literally and figuratively, it helps you be on the same page. And we also talk about the ethos around collaboration, making sure that that long-term vision is really aligned. Like Lauren, you shouted out all of Michael's commissioning, and the fact that, we know, because Michael is who Michael is, that it's not going to be, oh, I premiere this piece, I send the composer a live recording maybe, and then I never touch it again. That is not a super helpful form of collaboration, really, to anyone. That idea that the performer gets to be really invested in what the piece of art looks like, the life that it can have. And then Mike and I help composers see that getting a premiere, that's not a sustainable career. As much as it's exciting to, in the form of the proverb, make 1,000 clay pots, it's great practice. But art needs to have a life. And I think rather than getting anxious about thinking, oh, how do I get another performance? We think about that as a curiosity. So in what ways could this piece have a second, third, fourth performance? Could it be different venues? Could it be different performers who all want to work together in a consortium model? So in maybe the biggest nutshell ever, that's that's the class, commissioning and collaboration basics. I have to say too, I bring my own commission fee mission ethos approach to this class. And so very quickly, because I do get this question a lot, the three pillars that I teach our students, that are the sort of three things that I triangulate in my brain as a composer, are how much do I want to do the project? Number one, if we can always be asking ourselves that first, I think that's a great start. Two, what is the turnaround time? Because time is the only resource we can't get back. And third, but certainly not finally, that third pillar for me is, what is the commissioner's capacity to pay? Because I simply don't think it's acceptable to be charging a fellow grad student the same thing as a big organization with a specific commissioning line item in their budget every year. And I think that is the part that trips up a lot of earlier stage composers and also earlier stage performers who are maybe new to commissioning, because they either think they have to undercut pricing, which hurts all of us, or there is a sort of hesitancy to commission in the first place because commissioners are scared they won't be able to have enough funds to make that artist feel valued. So I think in kind of giving folks those three guiding points and actually opening the books, and Mike and I talk about the actual numbers that we're charging and seeing, we are hopefully equipping this next generation of artists with the information that they need.
To piggyback off of that, because of getting into the world of just commissioning, and just my biggest thing is I want to hear composers write for trumpet that have never written it as a solo instrument, because I want to see what you can come up with. Do you think we're easy, or do you think we're hard? Do you think you want me to blow air through my instrument? Okay, I need you to give me some reasons, because I'm gonna be why am I blowing air through this instrument? But and so that's the biggest thing. I think I just commissioned 2 students at UNG, because one of them wrote his own trombone concerto and premiered it on a general recital, and I said, that's actually kind of good. I said, so here you go. I need you to write me a contract, give it to me by the end of the semester, and then we'll talk it through and do all these other things. Here's some people you can reach out to. They already know you're going to reach out to them, all this other things. And that's my biggest thing, is I want people to write. And then on top of that, you were just talking about people being scared they can't afford it. Baby, just ask the question And then you can move that year. That's what I did with Kataj and his Sonata. He gave me that price. I said, baby, you deserve that. We're going to move from 2022 to 2024. And that's all we got, just a slight move. And then we'll make it happen, baby. Don't worry. And that's the thing, like, be flexible and be upfront with people. Like, I was not expecting that. But here's the thing, I know you deserve it. So let's just adjust the project slightly. And then let's adjust that. And then we can both get what we want. You're going to get a great piece that you can perform, and the composer gets recognition and they gets the gratitude that they deserve, because, hey, a piece does not only cost $50, because that's just how much you think. Like, that's an hour lesson. I love that you can do an hour lesson for $50. Writing all these voices and making it sound good, that ain't no $50. I love that.
It's not $50.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes it's the conversations that you also have with people that can help composers too, where you're like, I don't have the money right now, speaking to the grad students and things like that, but your voice is sometimes louder than your pocketbook. So you could be talking to your professor and say, oh my gosh, there's this composer that I know that I think will be very great. Okay, your professor might have, well, not might, do have way more money than you and have more resources to get those funds than you might. Like some of the things, that I have seen work, just having a conversation with a couple professors, they're like, oh, I don't know that composer. Let me listen. Okay, well, guess what? Now, you've expanded who is now listening to, say Gala's music, and now they like Gala. Now they're going to reach out to Gala and say, oh my gosh, we heard your music and now we want to commission you for blank this. So just by word of mouth, we'll start to get something way bigger. And now you're in those conversations of like, wow, I didn't think, that this would go somewhere. Well, it will. Words matter. Words are stronger than you may think.
Can I also, on that, talk for a moment about how community really can be your strength? And I think that sometimes when it comes to doing projects, including commissioning projects, that some people may be more interested in being the only person who gets the credit for it. Like, oh, I single-handedly commissioned this. I did this. I. But like, think about how much more collaborative it could be, and how many more people it can impact it from the beginning. Like, who should be involved in this? You know what I mean? And you could have tier levels. I've seen that for commissioning projects where it's like professional, collegiate, anything like amateur, whatever, et cetera, and they do it by like, a more equity-based approach of that, which I think is really beautiful. But when it comes to projects, because like, again, we're talking about in general, just things like your festival, for my R's and Ears anthology, commissioning in general, those are projects that all could have been done possibly by one person, but it would not have been what it is now, right? If it were just that one person. What's the thing that says, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, like, take people with you, or whatever it is. Like, I tend to want to always do that. Like, I am independent, but I see the strength in relationships, in community. And why would I ever do something alone if I could have someone next to me? You know what I mean? Like, so I just want to say, like, as you're thinking about this, if you're listening to this, like, oh, I really want to compose, like commission a composer, but I don't think I have enough funds. Talk to people. There could be, oh, you know what? I have this. They have this. Maybe we can talk to Professor so-and-so and Dr. so-and-so, and they point us to X, Y, and Z. You have no idea what can come out of those conversations. So really just, again, community is your strength.
100%.
I will also piggyback, and I'm going to pass this on to Gala. I prefer the consortium model. The reason why is because I know 25 people invested their money. That means there's a possible 25 performances that could happen within this exclusivity period. And that means for those 25, let's say they're, I don't know, at a university, and they're like most professors do it, and they play for their kids. That means 5 to 10 kids might be like, I want to be like my professor and play that piece. And then you lead to, that's 25 people who played it. That could lead to 5 times 25 people who buy the work. And then that leads, let's say 2 or 3 actually perform the work. That's a multi-year like income for the composer, recognition for the composer, and performances for the composer. And then possible more commissionings for the composer. I love a good consortium. I just love it. I don't know what it's like a composer. So from a composer standpoint, please educate us.
This is 100% agreement on that one, Michael. I will say, and also, as you were describing this, I was like, wow, this is the only time I've ever agreed with MLM math in my entire life.
Multi-level marketing, baby. Multi-level marketing.
So for the people who don't know what that means, not me, obviously, but for our audience, what does that mean?
Oh no, I just mean like the idea that one group of people sort of the experience someone experiencing that product, in this case art, which love to see it, can spur on many other people, perhaps several people per original person, to want to also take on that art. Yes, we're referring to contemporary music, not essential oils on this
I was
episode.
gonna say this is very Mary Kay. It's giving Mary Kay.
Okay, yes.
But coming back to consortium models, absolutely. This is, I would, in my opinion, most of the time, the composer stream scenario, because like you're mentioning, you do get all of these different interpretations of the same piece, which is so artistically beautiful and also useful. I think as someone who's constantly trying to translate what I hear to, something visual, something written on the page, then I get to understand all of the different ways that that piece could be played. And I think that's valuable in its own creative right. But then on top of that, as someone who is managing a lot of different media for your website, for portfolio things, for applications for things, having a multitude of different recordings is really useful. And then that way, if you have a student who plays it and it's really great, I could use that recording. Or if you have a student that plays it and maybe it's toward the end of their recital, they're tired, it's not a great recording, that is also completely okay. And I think it takes the pressure off of the lead commissioner, or, there being a sole commissioner, because then it's not, you got to get it right in these, 5 minutes or whatever. I think that's something, if I could go back and give like very nuts and boltsy advice to my younger composer self, I think it would be the idea that documentation is incredibly important. And you want to always give yourself and your collaborators to quote Gabby Frank, the highest batting average. So maybe that means you're even on as a voice memo on your phone recording the dress rehearsal. Or if can get your recording engineer in the hall an hour early and record a run through. Or maybe you're recording, if you have the resources, a studio session the day before the recital. This can obviously look like many different levels of things, for many different types of people and situations. But I love that because of this. It's just, I feel like it gives everybody, number one, a real sense of investment and ownership over a really cool new thing. But number two, everybody walks away from it feeling, I think, feeling like they've accomplished artistically maybe the thing they want to accomplish.
And I want to thank you for that. And it just sparked also me realizing having a conductor here with us in our midst, Anthony, we've been talking so much about mostly I think more individual chamber and solo based commissioning, but commissioning also for larger ensembles where you get to put this in front of 30, 40, 50 plus students. And now they're like, oh my gosh, we know who this composer is, and we met this composer, and they can become music majors one day. And oh, we played this amazing piece, and I know her, and blah blah blah. What's that relationship there? I mean, that's a huge for a conductor. You have to think about who you're putting in front of your students, right? Not only music wise, but if they come do a visit, if they do a Zoom thing, how do they actually interact? So what's that relationship like?
Gala, how's it been for you? And then I'll explain a little bit about from the conductor side.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Anthony, I'm so excited to hear what you have to say about this. I will say it is the greatest joy. I was super, super lucky to have a band consortium for a piece called Love and Nature this past season. And we got 56 consortium members, huge consortium, a lot of really positive response around this piece. Shout out to my good friend Kim Fleming, who is one of the conductors at University of Illinois, who led it. And again, like going back to collaboration and working with your friends, we overlapped here at Michigan in the DMA, and we had just always sat next to each other at concerts saying, oh, we're going to do something together. We're going to do a project together. And then she got this great gig at U of I and was like, all right, it's time to go. And so I have spent a lot of this past fall Zooming into different band classes and getting to hear so many different performances of this piece via live stream most of the time. And it feels so amazing to be able to be, well, the sort of weird floating head on a screen most of the time. But to be able to be a composer in the room in whatever sense, a lot of times for students for the first time ever, that they're having that interaction, depending on the program. And I love when conductors add that sort of little Q&A portion at the end where the students get to ask whatever they want to ask. And the number one thing I like to encourage folks to do is to just try writing music. I think a lot of times folks just need to hear that said, that permission given, whether they need it or not. And it is really lovely too to give them a window into all the different ways that our brains can work. The fact that a career in music doesn't just look like playing the trumpet. It could also be, being that teacher on the podium. It could look like being me, the composer. It could look like being the arts administrator who helps that commission get off the ground. And so I think being able to offer that perspective is one of the most valuable parts of that type of consortium.
Mm. I always love, having the composer come in and speak, whether that's in person or Zoom, because you never know the students that are in the room, that it takes one experience for it to change their entire life trajectory. By sometimes just seeing Gala and seeing how wonderful of a person she is, it's just like, oh my gosh, I think I can do that. That is such an amazing experience. But also, even for the conductor, by collaborating with the composer, that is so much fun to do, because I remember when me and Gala was on the phone, I was like, I really see this piece in like three voices, and I always make the Destiny's Child type of analogy.
Really, you love that Destiny's Child.
Beyonce, Kelly, and Michelle. Those are three voices, baby. Sometimes you're the superstar, sometimes you're the supporting artist. But and you know what I heard, Gala was like, oh my gosh, like I never thought about that, but there are three voices in this piece that are going on. And I was like, now just thinking about that and seeing how different people can see, one type of music, that was so interesting. And I remember I went to the next rehearsal that following day and I was like, by the way, Gala, she like checked off my analogy of Destiny's Child. So we're doing this right, y'all. We are doing this right. But, and so you bring it into the ensemble and it takes that kind of mystery away, because especially when you're doing this with a high school, middle school, and even collegiate, we see the name in that top right corner, but it doesn't go past that. So when you bring it into the rehearsal, you take that kind of mysterious, kind of ominous, a composer, oh my gosh. No, they're a human being. They're alive. They're here to talk to us. And they just created an art, and we are here interpreting their art. That is really what we are doing here. So it takes that away. So for all the conductors that are out there, if you are not reaching out to your composer friends about coming into the rehearsals, and if you're not commissioning them or just talking about them so then somebody else can commissioning them, you need to. That is our duty. That's our job, to help continue what we have started and what I'm love seeing in the past decade. The amount of composers that are getting, a check to write and let their voices be heard, that's what we need. That's our duty as a conductor. And so I'm just glad that, Gala is writing this wonderful music. And on top of that, such a wonderful person. Okay. We can all say this here on Relative Pitch. Sometimes it is not the best to meet the people that write some music or your idol, but Gala is truly genuine. And here's a little story about how we all kind of met Gala. We had our last year at Midwest, where we had our little after, it was like our cocktail hour, and Gala's here. And she just was such a warm spirit, and we're all talking and we're enjoying and everything. And then about 6 or 7 months later, I'm like conducting this piece. I'm like, Gala Flagello, Gala Flagello. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I was like, let me text her. I'm doing her piece. Look at this. Again, beautiful person. And she was like, I'm such a big fan of Relative Pitch. And I was like, girl, I'm a big fan of you. So, and now we're here, and look how this comes out. So really just be there for one another. You never know what that connection will lead to ever. So thank you, guys.
I literally remember this conversation with Anthony because I was on the phone and he was like, I'm doing was it Bravado?
Mm-hmm.
And like Gala, and I'm like, girl, you remember Gala? She kept on the white thing.
Yeah.
It was like, she was like, can I bring a composer friend? And I'm like, girl, I love composers. When I get a little adult juice in me, I just love to commission. That's my favorite thing to do with some adult juice in me. That's how half of my commissions, y'all, I'm not lying to you. Half of my commissions has happened after adult juice. Yeah. And they've been some of the best. Cottage's Sonata, amongst some others. So I'm just saying, adult juice, commissioning, go hand in hand.
Yes. They are. Adult juice works, y'all. It works sometimes, okay? But for real, it was just such an amazing, experience. And Gala, I will have to put you on a commission to get you to write some middle school music soon, so that we can bring you into those, because that is going to be my next biggest thing, is having all these composers, because I have so many composer friends, but the music is way before a middle schooler child. Or sometimes a middle schooler can play something on Monday and then by Wednesday it's gone. So it's gone. It's wiped away. But that would be the next thing, is to get all of y'all's voices together for that young band. Because those are the students that also need to have those experiences as well. So I cannot wait to get all those juices flowing and things like that.
But you got to wait for mine. Mine just came to me while we were doing this episode. I call mine first. I call dibs.
Anyway, well, Gala, if any of us wanted to commission you or to contact you about anything, how do we do that? How do we find you?
Thanks, Lauren. You would find me on my website, which is just galaflagello.com. Super easy with this spaghetti name that is very unique. And also, of course, Instagram and Facebook as well. I am super happy to connect with folks. One of my favorite things is the random contact form submission through my website. Everything from, hey, I love your music, to, hey, I'm thinking about a project for 2026. Any and all messages welcome. So thank you. And thank you all so much for having me. This has truly, truly been a delight.
It's been so fun just getting to reconnect with you. And again, sustainability in relationships, we love it. So thank you for being now even deeper in our community. And we are, of course, just such big supporters of you. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right. Well, and for everyone listening, please go follow Gala on everything and become part of her village. And we will see you next week.